From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
And tonight here at 5:30, how a call for help from a supposed loved one could drain your bank accounts of thousands of dollars. The scam alert you need to hear. And the Colts get creative to make sure they are still delivering holiday cheer to sick kids, even if they can't do it in person. Chris?
Topping our lineup, the pandemic has changed the way students of all ages learn. We take a look at the trends that may stick around after coronavirus, with the possibility of more people being forced from their homes if an eviction moratorium ends. There are worries that this could further the spread of COVID-19. What action experts say needs to be taken to prevent a further surge in cases. And a group of college students stepping up to lend a hand to working moms. We will introduce you the minds behind a special project.
But first, here at 5:30, $9,000 in cash bail is what set off alarm bells for one Indianapolis family. And now one family member is speaking out with a warning of a potential bail scam here in the Indianapolis area. WRTV spoke with a woman who says last week a person called pretending to be her brother and said he was involved in a car accident downtown. Within minutes, the family says a person claiming to be a lawyer also called the family, originally demanding $45,000 cash bail, then saying it was reduced to $9,000. The family did end up getting in touch with the son, who is out of state at college, and determined this was fake. They reported it to the Attorney General's office. And while the president and CEO of the BBB of Central Indiana says he hasn't heard of this specific scam in the area, he's not surprised. And to him, it certainly sounds similar to grandparent scams.
The scammers seem to be getting, more sophisticated and more ingenious almost every day. They never seem to run out of ways to kind of trick you. It kind of seems to be like a little game of what I call whack-a-mole. You seem to get them over here and then they pop up over here.
The BBB suggests also reporting anything suspicious to the scam tracker on their website. WRTV also reached out to the Attorney General's office multiple times for comment, but have yet to hear back.
And Mark, hopefully everybody enjoyed the sunshine today. It won't be as bright tomorrow. The clouds will take over. Still a little glow here on the horizon. And as you can see, look at that plane just streaking across the sky. Must be a beautiful view up there. Actually, a few planes up in the air that we can see the contrail from. A few more clouds in the northern half of the state. We won't see any rain until tomorrow afternoon, maybe early afternoon. We'll just kind of set the stage here with this strong south wind bringing in more moisture and eventually moist enough to create some showers. 41 in Kokomo, 44 in Shelbyville. Muncie also mild for this time of the year, but about 10 degrees cooler than we will be tomorrow evening as temperatures will surge. The story tomorrow, that increasing chance of rain late in the day, temperatures on a strong south wind that will gust over 40 miles per hour will climb into the 50s. That rain shower activity first will develop early afternoon in a few spots. Temperature by noon at 49. There are your afternoon temperatures. That's a conservative 52 in the metro area. Temperatures low 50s to the north. It will just depend on the timing of the thicker cloud cover and showers, but there are the mid 50s anywhere along Interstate 70. To the south, still mid 50s. Rain a little more likely there first. There's your cloud cover in the morning, and you'll begin to see a few dots of green popping up. Those are the showers, and it becomes pretty obvious the cold front sitting over Illinois by 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. That's where you have this line of showers that will mark the end of the very mild temperatures. We'll talk about the other side of the front coming up.
Tacked on to the coronavirus stimulus bill is new legislation tackling one of the most controversial practices in healthcare: surprise medical bills. That's when you go to the hospital or have an elective procedure and then later find out some of the doctors or facilities were out of network, meaning you could owe tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, here's what most impactful about this legislation: patients would no longer get those surprise out-of-network bills for emergency care or for a planned procedure. They will instead be billed an in-network rate. Out-of-network providers would have to give patients a heads up on estimated charges. That's at least 3 days. Now, air ambulance companies would also not be able to charge more than in-network costs. Ground ambulance not included in this. Now, insurance and providers have to go to arbitration to work out the final payment. This is a complex solution that advocates say could actually end up costing you more in the long run.
So a mediation process that Some states have put in place, but research has shown that it increases the likelihood that consumers face higher premium costs on the back end.
The Coalition Against Surprise Medical Bills had been pushing for policies that, in the simplest form, would have essentially made in and out of network rates the same. Savings that, in part, would have funded community health centers.
Not only is that approach the cleanest way of dealing with this, but it also saves the patients and taxpayers the most money. It was going to save $25 billion over 10 years.
The group plans to push for more terms around that arbitration process to prevent abuse, driving up costs. None of the new surprise medical bill legislation will take effect until January of 2022. Stimulus checks will come faster than COVID-19 vaccines for most Americans. Dr. Anthony Fauci said by the end of March or early April, he expects the vaccines to be available to the general public. He also said the process could take up to 4 months to reach everyone who wants a vaccine. Now, still ahead in our lineup, the pandemic has changed the way students of all ages learn. But how long can we expect these changes to last? We look at the trends that may stick around after coronavirus.
Got everything else you need.
One person is now dead after a garbage truck collided with an SUV in Broad Ripple. It's a story we first brought you on Good Morning Indiana. Metro Police say it happened shortly after 1 o'clock this morning. Officers say a Ray's trash service truck was driving south on College Avenue when it hit the SUV driving east on Kessler. Medics took 2 men from the SUV to the hospital where one later died. We are still waiting on the condition of the other man.
Enrollment in public schools nationwide has gone down during this pandemic. According to data obtained by Chalkbeat and the Associated Press, enrollment dipped by about 2% since last year. Experts say several factors are to blame. Many students struggled to attend classes online, so they've been expelled from school for missing too many days. Also, kindergarten is not required in some states. Now, surprisingly, remote learning is more popular among parents than originally thought. This is according to a survey by RAND Corporation. They're a nonprofit research group. Now, it's not to say that all parents are on board with virtual learning. In the grand scope, more parents prefer the in-person instruction. Now, educators are more dissatisfied with virtual learning. About 2/3 of teachers said that students weren't prepared for grade-level work because of distance learning. They also said that students who were fully remote were completing less of their assignments and were absent more often. Teachers also reported high levels of stress and burnout. In a separate study, superintendents said that they would like to keep virtual schooling as an option after the pandemic.
But the reasons that the superintendent said that they had wanted to keep online schools after the pandemic really related to parental demand. So they cited reasons like retaining enrollments, student enrollments in their district. Enrollments is the way that districts get funding. And also the benefits of offering just more choices to students and parents.
The survey also found lower income students are suffering the most during this time.
Low-income students are more likely to attend schools that are fully remote during the pandemic than middle and upper income students. And it's the lower income parents on the surveys who are most concerned about their children falling behind academically during the pandemic.
Lower income students are less likely to have the devices and internet access necessary for online learning. Now, while there are some resources to help lower income families, researchers at RAND are making a recommendation. They want to see federal government develop open source curriculum materials that are of high quality and specifically for online instruction. Now, more to get to in our lineup. There are worries that the end of an eviction moratorium could lead to more coronavirus cases. What action experts say needs to be taken to prevent a further surge?
Good.
When you look back on this year, what sticks out to you? A group of scholars has created a historic reminder to help people in the future understand what pandemic life was like. Chloe Nordquist has the story.
And the nurse kind of like put his hands out.
Allison McLaren is a photojournalist who has captured many of the raw moments and emotions in 2020, including these nurses blocking protesters in Denver, Colorado earlier this spring.
And the gentleman got in his face and the nurse just looked away from him.
That photo would end up gaining international attention.
Within like 30 minutes, I had thousands of shares.
And for good reason.
I remember when I first saw it, It was really striking. So it sort of felt like it brought together a lot of the complex streams of conflict and tension that we were having to grapple with as a society.
Hari Han is a political science professor at Johns Hopkins University. As a curator, she chose this photo to be preserved in a COVID-19 time capsule created by the nonprofit Social Science Research Council, or SSRC.
The act of both people in that picture was an act of trying to make change in some way.
As we close out this dynamic year, the SSRC decided to create this time capsule not only for future social researchers, but for the general public as reflection on 2020. The content ranges from ironic toilet paper shortage-related memes to images of hope and human connection.
They were like instant artifacts of that moment. And there were a lot of those moments.
Alexa Dietrich is a program director with the SSRC.
I believe it has accomplished a set of goals in the sense that of bringing this type of analysis and perspective to much broader audiences.
She says the capsule is meant to bring about ongoing reflection, just as these curators had to do when coming up with their selections to put in the project.
That image I chose is the sort of, how would you like to pay sign that you would see at any kind of retail store or restaurant. But instead of having just like Visa, MasterCard, or Amex, it also has a roll of toilet paper.
Bill Maurer is another curator for the project and an anthropology professor.
It really spoke to things like the concerns over hoarding that were taking place early on in the pandemic, particularly around toilet paper. But then also that kind of broader, almost philosophical question of when you're in a global pandemic and there is an economic shutdown, what's really valuable anymore?
The time capsule is part of a bigger project the SSRC is putting together, free of use, to offer a range of perspectives and thoughts on the past year.
The world is just in this moment of dynamism and flux. And so to take this snapshot, this moment of time in time, to think about what we want to capture and to create a historical record for future generations, I think is really important.
I'm Chloe Nordquist reporting.
There may be a change in how it's done, but the Colts aren't letting the pandemic stop an annual tradition that brings so much joy to kids. Usually around this time, Colts players, cheerleaders, and Blue go from room to room at Riley Hospital for Children, caroling to patients. This was the scene last year. Well, that was not possible this year, but the Colts still found a way to bring Christmas cheer to Riley kids. Players used a robot to share holiday greetings and special gifts from the team, and they also put together this video.
In 2020, the horse you gave to me, one back up flipping, 2 game clinching turnovers.
Intercepted by the Colts, Julian Blackmon.
In 2020, the horse you gave to me, 9,000 yards receiving.
That video was broadcast in every patient's room. Hey, in Johnson County, the Franklin Police Department has spent the past few days filling toy orders. Here are some of the toys already out the door. The department's 3rd annual Community Holiday Toy Drive helped more than 80 local families.
People are very, very grateful, and it's been very rewarding for us to be able to see that and be able to see people be so happy and be so grateful for the gifts that they've been given.
Over the weekend, a number of private donations were dropped off at the police headquarters. The